I think I was kind of like obviously testing the waters to see where my mom was on this topic of homosexuality. And she was like, well, you know, it's a very, you know, it's something that they choose for themselves. They choose it because they want to be rebellious, because they want to, you know, they want to just ruffle people's feathers. They don't like the way that, you know, things are, and so they've chosen this lifestyle that is really, really, you know, aggressive to other people or something like that. And I was like, oh wow. I was like, this is going to be a very long road. I'm like, but you know, I think back then I still was in a fair bit of denial, and I kind of felt like, you know, if I was a good boy, you know, it would sort of like dismantle itself somehow, and I would naturally emerge into my normal, healthy, masculine state of liking women. Which never happened, which is why you see the homosexual that I am today. And which, of course, I'm so happy with. I wouldn't have it any other way. But it was just interesting to kind of to come from that place of being like, they chose this is the way it is. And so as far as BYU is concerned, there was definitely sort of an expectation to keep quiet. Although I have to say, to the credit of so many Mormons, that when it came down to actual personal interaction with me on a personal basis, most people could not have been kinder. Because I think it changes things to put a face on it. I mean, as with anything, as with racism, as with, you know, with gender discrimination, as with anything. I mean, if you meet a person who's like, I am the person to whom you are, you know, with whom you are discriminating in A, B, and C ways. I think if you meet that person and you look in their eyes and you see them, you just feel like you can't really discriminate anymore against them. It just changes the way you feel. So, you know, a lot of people I would hear would say things behind my back. Like I remember, you know, I heard one musical theater MDT person, someone was like, they called you a snake in the grass, that you were just like waiting to prey on people. I was like, listen, I like older men, first of all, so I am not going to be preying on any of these students here at BYU, you know. I was being so like, whatever, you know. I was like, I like Harry, you know, whatever. It's just being like crazy. But I definitely have never been that person that was like, oh yeah, I want to like bring out that, you know, guy that's never done anything. And I was so sexually inexperienced. I was really, truly so innocent. I mean, I had never done anything. And that was partly sort of unconscious at the beginning. But then once I sort of got into the swing of my life as a gay Mormon, which my life as a gay Mormon, like in the church, was actually, it had a really long shelf life compared to most people who come out. Most people come out, tell their parents they're gay, sort of separate themselves from the church to some extent. Most people do that pretty quickly, in my experience. I know a lot of gay people that once they finally came, a lot of gay Mormons that once they came out, they left BYU because they were like, this is not a healthy atmosphere for me to be in. And in a lot of ways, it's very, it can be very damaging, depending on who you are and how you take it and whatnot. But I really was that guy who wanted to just really give it my best shot to you know, be part of the community, and I wanted to raise awareness, and I also wanted to be in the church for myself. Like I wanted to see if I could make that happen. I wanted to see if I could, you know, marry a woman and have a family and be that gay person that proves that you can. You know, I was that person. And I remember my freshman year, I had a huge fight with this girl. I never had anyone challenge me like this. It was this woman who, she was, you know, probably a couple years older than me, but she hung out with a lot of gay people. But she hung out with this group of gay people that was, you know, that I met, that were all pretty much determined that none of them would stay in the church. Like a lot of them already had boyfriends. And, you know, me and my friends who were a little more conservative in the gay kind of, in terms of actually having boyfriends, we were like, they have boyfriends, like, they have boyfriends, like, this is a lot. You know, it was like so much to us that they like had these boyfriends. And I remember that, you know, we would often socialize with them, you know, because we would, if we were going to go to Salt Lake and go to, you know, the Sun, that was the name of the gay bar in Salt Lake, that actually got hit by a tornado. And everyone's like, it was God's wrath. I'm like, you know what, the Utah Jazz Center also got destroyed, so all you sports fans, sorry, that also got destroyed by God's wrath, if that's really what happened. It's really funny. But, you know, if we ever saw them and they were going out, then we were definitely on really friendly terms. But I remember this girl was like, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get married one day. I am going to get married. Like, I'm gonna figure out how to, like, you know, I'm gonna figure out how to beat this, you know. And that's kind of the place I was in when I was 18 years old. And she was like, what about the woman? Have you ever thought for a second about the woman's life that you'll be marrying? And I was like, whatever, I'll love her, she'll be fine, you know. And she's like, you are not thinking. She's like, you are just thinking about yourself. You're just thinking about how you can make it work. You are not thinking for a second about your partner and how she's going to feel having someone who's not really attracted to her. And I fought with her, like, I fought tooth and nail with her. But after the conversation was over, I was like, I really hadn't thought about it. I really hadn't. In my development, I'd only been thinking about myself, and I was like, I know I can be disciplined enough to make this happen. Even if I never develop feelings, like, I'll just tough it out. I'll just tough it out, and I'll endure to the end, and I'll hang on. And you know, it's just one of those things where it's, when you're in that place, you definitely feel like you can do it, and, you know, you can suffer for the gospel, and you can, you know, I give my life for the gospel, so I definitely, you know, am willing to, like, sacrifice my personal happiness on this level, and it's worth it, and, you know, it's what God wants me to do, it's what my family wants me to do. But I just think, I think at some point, especially on that topic, I just really, really chilled out, because I was like, I just started to realize that, like, more and more, I started to see from the woman's perspective, and you know, I started to become more of an advocate for women in the church in terms of marrying these gay men and what was really going on with them. And I'd already had the experience of meeting some women in these marriages and hearing frank sort of declarations about what their life was like, and seeing that they weren't really getting everything out of it that they had wanted. And you know, there is something to be said for disillusionment in marriage. You know, everyone, I think, is somewhat disillusioned. No one gets exactly what they thought they were going to get when they were a little boy or a little girl, you know. But that to me is a different level of disillusionment. I do feel like when you're a little girl growing up, especially growing up in any religion where you're really looking at marriage, and like temple marriage particularly, as some sort of pinnacle of achievement, I think to get to that place and then have your husband, one of my friends who, you know, I won't say, but one of my friends who was married, has now kind of told me that when him and his wife, after they just had left the temple, when they got into the limo to go to, you know, to leave to the airport to go on their honeymoon, that, you know, he instantly, once he was alone with her after all of the hoopla of the reception and everything, once they were alone, he felt really terrified. He felt really terrified about what he had done and what it meant, and like what this was going to do to him. And of course, you know, he was just in his own mind thinking, oh my gosh, like what's happened? And she instantly, of course, was like, are you okay? Why are you being weird? And for me, like, the biggest tragedy is her. Like, her being in the limo. She's just been married in the temple. She's just had this amazing, you know, her family, everyone's so happy. She's got this gorgeous guy who she loves, who's so amazing and sweet and friendly, and who like loves her, and who's super Mormon, and who's really committed. And then the minute they're by themselves, it starts that sort of, you know, that feeling of dread. And she, of course, is witnessing it and going, what did I do wrong? Like, are you mad at me? What happened? In the limo. And another person that was married, I remember, while he was still married, he, and he's not anymore, the second person, he told me that, I was like, well, how is it being married? You know, you've kind of, you know, because he had kind of come out to me, and he'd been married for about 7 years at this time. And he said, you know, the worst for me is when we both get into bed at night and it's just quiet, and I know that she wants to have sex, and I just don't want to, and it's just this feeling of dread, you know? And I felt bad for him. But I felt so bad for her, because I was just like, you didn't ask for this. You didn't know this is what you were going to get. It just seems, it just is something that I definitely, like, as the years went on, I really calmed down about being like, I am going to get married. No one's going to stop me. Because it became less about me, and it became more about the actual idea of what it'd be like. And I also was like, what kind of father am I going to be if I'm kind of living in this sort of dread? Like, I always wanted to be a father.